Hello, welcome back to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript course. I'm going to start off by going over the quick check assignment to make sure everybody got everything correct. From what I saw with assignments, everything looks good, but I want to make sure that everybody understands the quick checks. So we start off with what is, you should be able to see my screen, I believe. Yeah. Okay. What is a markup language? So we spoke about that last week. Here are the answers. A markup language is a language that describes the content and structure of a document by identifying or tagging different elements in the document. We talked about tags last week, about how each element contains a tag. It might be, most tags have an open tag and a closed tag. So that's what a markup language is. You're marking up the actual language, so it's able to, in a structured way, so it's able to be read by the browser and displayed on the screen. Number two, what is XHTML and how does XHTML differ from regular plain HTML? So XHTML is a version of HTML that enforces strict compliance with its syntax rules. And that's important because, again, the rules are, they should be followed. And by forcing them to be followed, you could be guaranteed that the program itself and the programmers who are programming it, the code will be the same across browsers, and you won't have to worry about little changes amongst them. Okay, what is W3C and what is WHAT-WG? So the W3C is the Worldwide Consortium. It's a group of web designers and programmers tasked with developing a common set of HTML standards for all web browsers to follow. This is important, as I mentioned, that in the past when browsers first came around, programmers and companies were kind of doing their own thing, and which made it difficult for programmers, web developers to go and program on different websites because it might work on one browser but yet not work on another. So by having a set of standard rules, it makes it much easier. But everything is more uniform. The WHAT-WG is the Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. It's a group that formed to develop rival versions to XHTML 2.0 called HTML5. The mission was eventually adopted by the W3C, so that they have taken charge of it. And as you know, HTML5 is out. We're using it. There's been a lot of changes, most of them good, and it makes it easier to design sites. Okay, what is a doc type? Let me make this a little bigger. What is a doc type? What is the doc type for HTML5 document? Okay, so a doc type, as you know, the doc type usually is at the top of the document. The doc type or document type is a statement that indicates the HTML language in which the HTML document is written. It's used by the validators to test for compliance with the HTML standards as a method of switching the browser between operating and standard modes and quirks modes. The document for HTML5 is simply doc type. So you put that in and it will know that it's HTML5 and all the rules should be followed within it. What is incorrect about the following code? Suggest a possible revision of the code to correct the error. So we have, let's take a look at it. We have an open case. We have a tag P. We have strong, curbside that now delivers, and we're closing the P tag, the paragraph tag, and then we're closing the strong tag. So what's messed up here, or what's not correct, is that we have to be consistent. If we're putting this entire line inside of a paragraph, right? So then everything should be inside of the paragraph. Both the strong tags. The way that it was set up, this P tag was before the strong, so you have to make sure that, as they mentioned here, the inner tags are not completely nested within the outer tags, and this is the revised code. So they have to be nested properly. Provide code to mark curbside employment opportunities as the document title. As we mentioned, you're able to make a document title. So it would be, there's the title tags, title, and you put whatever you want inside the title, and it's going to show up on the tab at the very top of the page or wherever the browser is going to display it. Provide code to create metadata, adding the keywords food truck, North Carolina, dining into the document. So this is number 7. So basically you just do meta, name is equal to keywords, and then content is equal to food truck, and you put all these inside of it. This will be picked up by the bots that search the internet, so it'll perhaps make it show up higher on searches, and you have a better idea what the content is for the actual website itself. Provide code to tell the browser that the character encoding UTF-16 is used in the document. We said last time that there's different types of encoding depending on what types of languages or what character sets you want to include in your HTML page. So we just do this character set UTF-16. Notice it's inside of quotes, and this is meta, so it's a meta tag. Open and close angle brackets, and yeah. Finally, number 9, provide code to add the comment created by and so on to the document. So this falls under a comment, and here it is. You have the angle bracket, exclamation point, hyphen, hyphen, created by, and you have whatever you want to put in here, and then you have to remember to close the comment, otherwise it will remain open. So it's the hyphen, hyphen, and then the angle bracket, and then that should do it. That should be a comment. Great. That was the first section. Second section, section 1.2. Provide code to mark the text gourmet Thai cooking as a heading with the second level of importance. So here. So the second level of importance they're making these headers. So they're H2. We said that, I think I demonstrated last time, there were, I think, 6 built-in header H tags. So this is second level, so it's H2. And we said that we could also, if in the future, we'll see how to change fonts if we wanted to, or make custom H tags. But for right now, it's just an H2, open it up, and then we close it with this /H2, and that would set it with the second level of importance. What element should you use to mark page content as a sidebar? So if you want it to be a sidebar, again, we spoke about that last time, what a sidebar is. So you just use the aside element in order to achieve that. What is the div element, and why would you often encounter it in pre-HTML5 code? So you're also going to encounter it in actual HTML5 code as well, but the div element is used to mark a division, and it was a major structural element prior to introduction of sectioning and semantic elements in HTML5. We're going to still deal with a lot of them actually in this book. So, and I'll show you some examples probably later today or during today's course. All right, number 4. What element would you use to indicate a change of topic within a section code? Then you would use the HR element. That would go and that would set to a different line. It will set it to a different line, and it will change the code there. Number 5, provide the code to mark the text daily special as emphasized text. So you could do EM. We'll go into it. Will specify it as it will make it a little bit different and make it stand out more. Again, a lot of these are just built in. These are all built in to HTML5. We'll learn how to create our own styling later on. And as far as you can always just look these up on the internet to see exactly what each one of these does. And number 6. Provide the code to mark the text as H, and then here's a subscript 2, S, O, and a subscript 4 with subscripts. So We have H, and then we have the sub tag 2. This will show up smaller, and then an SO, sub, and the 4 will be smaller, and it should show up properly then. The 2 and the 4 being smaller as subscripts. Provide the code to link the web page to CSS file mystyles.css. So now we're getting into the linking of a CSS page. So you'd have link href, and you have mystyle.css. And what is it? The relationship is a style sheet, and the type is text CSS. One of the important things to remember is that your style must be in the same folder as your HTML document is. If it's not, then you have to specify a path. Maybe it's going to be above, one level higher, or in a subfolder beneath. And if it is, you'd have to specify that inside of the quotation marks. And don't forget these quotation marks, they're very important. 8, provide the expression to insert an M dash into the web page using the character code. So this is the 8212 is the code for an M dash. So this is how you do it. It's 8212, but before you write, then there's a semicolon at the end, and before you put it, you put the ampersand and the hashtag, and this will show up on the web page. You won't see these, won't see this. You'll actually see the M tag. Finally, number 9, provide the code to insert an inline image using the source file, this logo file, and the alternate text art world. So it would be like this: IMG for the image. This means you're inserting an image. Then you have SRC, which stands for source. So what is the source? And you have the name of the source. This is a PNG file, which is appropriate for a web page. And again, notice that because there's no path here, when I say path, it's not like going up a level or to a subfolder, which means it has to be in the same folder that your actual page currently is in, whatever the HTML is in that current page. And then the alt text will show up if there's a problem, if this doesn't exist in the current folder, or if there's I don't know, if they're putting on, some computers have the ability to, it will read the alternate text for the picture, so then that would show up. Okay, last section. Provide the code to mark the unordered list containing the items Packers, Vikings, Bears, and Lions. So that's over here. UL, unordered list, and then each one of these is going to be inside of an LI. Notice each one is being closed with a tag with a /. That's closing each one of them. And Packers, Vikings, Bears, Lions. And it's unordered. Provide the code to mark up the following list of the top 5 most popular movies ranked in descending order according to IMDb. So we have these, and it's going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we have OL, ordered list, start 5. We're going to start at 5, and it's going to be in descending. So if you just would have put an OL, it just would have put regular numbers in. Here we're telling it specifically to start at 5 and to go down from 5 because we put in the word descending. Then we put all these in, and the browser will take care of the rest. So we'll put the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and done. Number 3, describe the 3 HTML elements used in a description list. So the description list is grouped by the DL element, description list element. The terms are marked with the DT element, and the description associated with each term is marked by the DD element, and that will give you the descriptions. Provide the code to create a navigation list for the following list items: home, fact, all these, right? I've got to read them all. So here we have nav, so it's navigation bar, open, close, always remember to close, UL, and you have LI, and you have href. These are all hrefs, which means this home will show up with a clickable, it will show up with a clickable link, because if you click it, it's going to go to index.html, this will go to fact.html, this will go to context.html. Using the folder structure shown in the figure, I won't have the figure here, but provide the relative path going from the CT about file to the CT catering file. So this is getting to a little bit of the path, and this means that it's the dot dot slash means you're going up one level, and then you're going down into catering, and then you're going inside of catering, you're going to use this CT catering at HTML. So this is the path. If you're making a link, and this also works for pictures, it works for any type of path navigation. The dot dot means you're going up to the parent, then the forward slash, and then you're looking for the folder catering, and then the specific file. If it was a image, you would be using an image file there. Provide the URL pointing to the element in the glossary.html file with the ID, cterms. Assume that the glossary HTML file is the same folder. Okay, as a certain page, like I said, it's in the same folder. So in this case, what you would do is it would be glossary.html, and this hashtag cterms will automatically send it to the part of the that file that has the ID of cterms. Provide the URL to access the website at the address. This is the address over a secure connection. So we said there are often times when you have to make when the internet's turning more and more towards secure. Basically, this S at the end means it's secure. Usually, it costs the way that it works. If we have a chance, I'll get into that another time. But basically, it's there's a secure key that's being sent by the user's computer to that site's computer, and the information is being encoded between them and the host, between the client and the host computers, which means that if information is taken during while they're going back and forth, you won't be able to read. It'll be scrambled up and it's encrypted. This is always, if you're making some type of payment, doing some type of passwords, always make sure that there's an S there to make sure that the site you're sending the information to is secure. Number 8 is provide the URL for an email link to the address. This is the address with the subject FYI. So we have mail to, and this is the address, and the subject is equal to question mark, subject is equal to FYI. This will automatically open up the client's computer with their default mail program, and it will set the subject FYI. And last is provide the URL for a telephone link to the US phone number. This is the phone number, and all you have to do is type in tel, colon, and then plus, and this is the specific number. Great. So now we'll begin the slides on this second chapter. So the objectives here are to explore the history of CSS, study different types of style sheets, explore the style precedence and inheritance. We're going to learn how about color and CSS, contextual selectors. We're going to work with the attributes selector. Going to apply text and font styles. We're going to see how to use a web font, define a list style. Going to see how the margins and padding spacing works. We're going to use pseudo classes and pseudo elements, and insert page content with CSS. So this is the overall look, how it's going to look in the end. The book always does this. It kind of shows you, gives you an idea of how the page is going to look. This is in the textbook. So whether you have a version, an online version, or a digital one, or if you have the actual hard copy, you could take a close look at it. You can see exactly with the sides here, how we're going to put the sides in, and the fonts, all this information. So introducing CSS. So up until now, we've been dealing with pretty much just HTML. A few little styling things, like maybe perhaps like a bold or a subscript. But in order to make a web page enhance its graphics, you need to incorporate some CSS. It makes sense that the CSS is not built into the actual HTML. I mean, you're able to use CSS with all HTML, but the actual language itself, HTML, is just straight text, and it's just meant for putting up text. Then if you want to make that text look nice and pretty, then you're going to use CSS. So the appearance of the page is determined by one or more style sheets written in the cascading style sheets CSS language. The latest version of the CSS language is CSS3. I'm sure they'll come up with another one, probably as soon as we finish this book. No, it's not that soon, but there will be other ones in the future, but it's usually backwards compatible. And the enhancements they make usually go in tandem with what's currently trending, style-wise, computer power-wise, and so on. CSS3 is built upon several modules, where each module is focused on a separate design topic. So you're able to go and use a specific module that you want to use, and that's the way that it's been built up. Types of style sheets. We have the browser styles or the user agent styles built into the browser. So there are some styles that are already built into the browser. For example, the H1s, those are already built into the specific browser. Then you have the user defined styles, and these are styles defined by a user based on the configuration settings of the user's browser. So an individual might change their specific browser to show something, to handle a code in a different way, and that's okay. We just can't. We might not know what it is because the individuals might change however they want. It's not too common unless you know what you're doing with the browser, but that is possible. And then we have external styles, and these are styles created by a website author, placed within a CSS file, and linked to the page. And this is what we're going to be dealing mainly with, creating our own look and feel for web pages. There are also embedded styles, and these are styles added to the head of the HTML document. This means that an HTML document could have some styles. You could have an external, that's next, but you could have an external file with all the styles in it, or the styles could be written at the very top of HTML document, or the last one is inline styles, and these are styles added as element attributes within HTML document and apply to only that particular element. So basically, you could use it you could make a style for one specific line, and if you wanted to do that and only using it once, then you might want to make it an inline style and only affect that one location. So the general syntax of a CSS style rule is that we have the selector, and we have an open curly brace and a closed curly brace, and the specific property that we want to go and change. And we could change stuff like here, like this. Hold on. Each browser, there are extensions. Your browser extensions are an extended library of style properties in the browser. And there are vendor prefixes indicating the browser vendor that created this and supports that style property. So these are the different, take a look here at the different, you probably recognize some of these, like for example, let's take a look at Chrome, right? This is the vendor for Chrome. And the vendor for Firefox, which I happen to use a lot, would be over here, right? Mozilla Firefox. So these are important to know because we said in the past that not all browsers are, they try to make them all compatible, but and pretty much they are, but you might want to make it backwards if someone is using a browser that's older, you want to make sure that your website is backwards compatible. So we'll see there's ways to do that, but in order to do that, there might be different codes depending on the browser. So these are the codes, these are the prefixes you put in. We'll see some examples in a bit of this as well. In order to do the styles, they are inserted directly into the HTML file as metadata by adding the following element to the document head. You're going to have the style, and then the style rules, and then you're going to close that specific tag. Where the style rules are the different rules that are embedded within the HTML page. So, and the inline styles are, like I said, they're inline, might be in that specific line of code. They are styles applied directly to a specific element using the following style attribute, and you have element and you have style and the specific property. Let's say it's the, I don't know, you might make it a font color, or you might make it, you might make a background color. So each of these properties and a specific value associated with it, and then you're going to close that element. Where the property value is pairs define the style applied directly to to that element. So something called, there's a precedence order, and the most specific style rule has precedence over the more general style rule. So if there's one that's more specific, it's going to have a higher, it will be used over the more general one. Specificity is an issue when two or more styles can conflict against each other. So when they do, if two rules have equal specificity and equal importance, then the one that is defined, then the one that's lastly defined will be the one that takes precedence. There's a concept of style inheritance. And style inheritance is a process in which properties are passed from a parent element to its children. So you're able to make, if you spend time going in a well-structured CSS file, and you want to use all those styles in the future or for other parts of the document, you could have it be inherited, and you'll have access to all those changes that you made. For example, the following style rule sets the color of article text to blue, and the rule is passed to any paragraph or other elements nested within that article. So here we have article, the actual word article, open a curly brace, color, (blue). So the color is going to be it's going to set the text color to blue. And then we have the P tag here, because we want to pass it to any paragraph. We're going to do P text align center. So any of the paragraph tags are going to have, it's all going to be centered. So now we're going to touch upon the browser developer tools. They allow designers to view HTML code and CSS files inside of your browser. Depending on, and we'll see an example of this also in a little bit. You're able to actually see some code and see how the code is working, and I mean, Chrome has the great developer tools. So does Firefox, and it gives you the ability. You can even change the code just to see how it would look appearance-wise. And also, if you're running your JavaScript, you'll see if there are going to be any errors. And they make it easier to locate the source of a style that has been applied to a specific page element. And they're different in each browser and are updated and improved constantly. If you like, what you could also do with it is if you go to a website and you like the page that's, like the look and feel of that specific page, you could go to the browser tool and copy a lot of the code, a lot of their styles, and then you could go and implement that on your own site. And you can see what type of font they use, the color scheme, and so on. So here's these are style. When you're making styles, you can make some comments. And this is how it looks. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see later. Right? You have the character. A character set rule defines the character encoding used in the style sheet, right? Then we have a open a / asterisk, and then a closed another asterisk and another /. And all this is considered a comment that will not show up in your actual CSS. There is importing style sheets. The import is a CSS rule used to import the contents of a style sheet. So for example, if you use this ampersand, the @ import, and you have a URL, the actual command URL inside of here, you're going to have a URL where URL is a URL of an external style sheet file. You're actually able to import it into your current style sheet. And it's similar to the adding a link element in the HTML file. So in CSS, you have thousands of colors to choose from if you can make your own color schemes. So we have the color values in which the color is given by an exact numeric representation. You're able to put numbers in, and then it will be able to go and the browser will interpret that as a specific color. And then you have the RGB triplet. It's an intensity of primary colors expressed as a set of numbers in CSS. So you might have, the color sequence is red, green, blue, and that will, depending on the intensity of the numbers that will demonstrate, that will give the intensity of those colors. And then you have a hexadecimal number. It's a number expressed in the base 16 numbering system, and that will also give us a specific color. Here's an example of some colors, right? The red, blue, green, blue, and they're overlapping to get more different colors. You're also able to there are websites that will help us out. I think I posted a discussion question, and they're on coloring, and you could also go and look at other sites to see what their color scheme is to help you out. But you should be aware that there's a hue, and hue is a tint of a color represented by the direction on a color wheel. Saturation measures the intensity of a color and ranges from 0 to no color all the way up to full color, which is 100%. And there's lightness that measures the brightness of a color and ranges from 0, which is black, all the way up to white, which is 100%. This is in the book. It just gives you the HSL color values. If you wanted to make something kind of opaque, as in not being like see-through, so the opacity defines how solid a color appears. A color's opacity is specified using the following properties, and you have the RGBA, red, green, blue, and then the last one is that thing is the opacity, how see-through it's going to be. And then you have this other one, HSLA, which is the hue, saturation, lightness, and then opacity for that as well, where the opacity is it sets the opacity of the color ranging from 0, which means it's completely see-through, completely transparent, up to 1, which is completely opaque. So it will take up, you'd see the color as you want to see it. So depending on your site, you might want to go and change, you might want to change the opacity for that. So you could set the text and background color. CSS defines the text and background color for each element on the web page. So we have the specific color, and we have background color, right? So if you don't have the word background here, it's going to change the actual color of the text, and background color is going to go and change the background color. Or color is a color name or a color value, and it's able to change that code. Here we have employing progressive enhancement. Progressive enhancement is a technique of placing code conforming to elder standards before newer properties. So you want to make sure that you might want to do that depending on the type of browser that they use, and it provides a support for older browsers and allows newer standards to be used by browsers that support them. Then we have contextual selectors. So what's a contextual selector? It specifies the content under which a particular page element is matched. Content is based on the hierarchical structure of a document, which involves the relationship between the parent element containing one or more children elements, and within those child elements, several levels of descending elements, and it will be displayed in that order. And here are the contextual selectors, right? There's parent and child. There's the different elements. To match any element, you would use a wildcard. The wildcard character is the multiplication, the asterisk there. It's used, and sibling selectors are used to select elements based on elements that are adjacent to them in the document hierarchy. Then we have an attribute selectors. So this is very important because a lot of when you, often when you want to specify a CSS rule, you're going to need to do it, you're going to have to identify the location where you want to set that rule. So selectors can be defined based on attributes and attribute values within elements. And we have the ID, and this is identification specific elements within the document. And class identifies a group of elements that share a similar characteristic or property. Usually you only have one ID, but class you can have multiple. So for example, you might want to have if you're setting up a form and you want some of the different parts of your page to have I don't know, let's say the white text, it's always white, let's say blue text and a gray background. So you might set them all to have to be a specific class. And then using this class, inside your CSS, you'll set that class to have those specific CSS rules. And these are the selectors, a list of them. I'm not going to go through them all, but we'll get them as we need to. There's, as I said before, these are the ID. This is how you would specify it inside of the CSS. And you have the ID is the hashtag ID, and class is going to be .class, and that will show you. Then you'll have access to those specific elements. Okay. So we're going to touch upon fonts now, typography. So it's the art of designing the appearance of characters and letters on a page. The color and font are one of the few properties of the CS family of typographical styles. You're able to change the look and feel of these fonts, and a lot of, I mean, if they don't, you'll see in a minute. But if they don't have the font on their computer, you could include it in your page. It can be downloaded. There are some built-in fonts to the computer itself, but you could have different ones if you want. So how do you choose a font? Text characters are based on fonts that define the style and appearance of each character in the alphabet. The general structure of defining a font for any page element is, and you have the font family, and you have the fonts, and where the font is a comma separated list known as the font stack. And it works in order of if the first font isn't there, it goes to the second font. If the second font's not there, it goes to the third font, and so on. A specific font is identified by name and based on a font definition, file stored on the user's computer or accessible on the web. So if they have it already on their computer, great. Otherwise, if it's accessible on the web, it might be downloaded and installed on the user's computer. Then there's generic fonts, and there are describe the general appearance of the characters in the text, but does not specify any particular font definition file, and this supports the font groups of their serifs and sans serifs and monospace, cursive, and fantasy. Those are all what is supported. So here are some styling web page text. Let's take a look at this a little bigger. Right, we have, this is the font family, Arial, Helvetica, and sans serif. And these are all, there's Arial Black, all the different ones. You have, we have the Century Gothic and Courier. So this is how, these are web safe fonts. These are ones you could use on the computer without worrying that that the computer doesn't have it. All these are safe. They're built into all browsers. If you want to do something more than that, then you have to you'll have to download it or include it. It depends if it's a Google font. But these are all built into the they're all safe fonts, hence web safe fonts. The web fonts definition font is supplied to the browser in an external file because web safe fonts limit the number of fonts. As I just said, they're limited. So you could, these are the ones that are built into the specific browser in Explorer and Chrome and Firefox and so on. You can see which ones are available. And then to access the font face rule, to access and load a web font, add the font face rule to the style sheet. So if you add that, that will add that specific font to that page. Once a web font is defined using the font face rule, it is included in the font stack, and it will be available for use for later. This is the general form for it, right? You have font face and the font family. You're going to do the name and the source. You have to give the source of where it is. The URL probably, the location where it is, and you could give it the description as well. Where name is just like I said, where the name is the name of the font, the URL is the location, and text is the optional text description of the font format, and the description value pairs are optional. style properties for the font, so you include them if you want, but because they're only optional. Setting the font size is very simple. Just do font size. So this is how you set the font size for the font, where size is CSS unit of length in either relative or absolute units. So what are absolute and relative units? Absolute is a fixed size and regardless of the output device and used only with printed media. So that's if you set it as a fixed font, it won't change depending on whatever browser. So if you set it as fixed font and it's like a phone or tablet, it might be too big. So it's good to use what's called relative units, and this is expressed in relative to the size of other objects within the web page or to the display properties of the device itself. So it's much easier to resize when there is a when you're setting it as relative. You're able to scale fonts with EMS and REMS. Text is made scalable with all font sizes expressed relative to the default font size. And you could either scale it, the three ways you could do it is with percentage, EM units, or the rem or root EM units. And so you could, we'll see an example here. Here's an example, right? So you could change this like 1% if you wanted to, or you could choose any of those ones that we just mentioned. And the viewport unit is a relative unit used to express length as a percentage if the width and height of the browser window, and you could use any of these in order to achieve that. And these are words, these font size are expressed using the following keywords, the XX, small, X small, small. So depending on the specific browser that you're using, you could change the font sizes using these codes, using these commands. So now we have controlling spacing and indentation. You're able to kern and track your spacing. There will be times when you want to like if you have margins, you want to set a little bit off the margin, or you want to set it off the top of the page. So so the kerning measures the amount of space between characters, while tracking measures the amount of space between words. So you could do that. The properties to control an element's kerning and tracking are, you have letter spacing and a colon the value. So it could be whatever values you put in. Again, it could be a percentage or it could be an absolute. And word spacing, and you can have a value there as well. And is leading, and to measures the amount of space between lines of text and is set using the following line height properties. Line height, and then a hyphen, and then size, and that's going to go and set the size for it. Text spacing can be controlled by setting the indentation for the first line of the text block by using the text indentation property, and this will go and set it. And you're going to, the text hyphen indentation, colon, size, and then semicolon, size being a specific value. So here's some code that represents it. So let's take a look at this, an example here. Right, so you might set the letter spacing to 1 EM. They're using EM here. You could also use pixels, or you could use, a percentage. So, so in this case, doing H1, H2, they're changing the font family to quicksand, and whichever one, any one of these fonts, and the letter spacing to this 0.1 EM. So there are font styles. You can specify the font style you might want to use. You write font style in the colon, and along with the type, where type is going to be either italic or whatever, oblique, whatever one you want to use. To change the weight of the font, you might want to use the weight, make it bold, or however you want, whatever weight you want to make. Font weight, where weight is a level of bolding formatting applied to the text. So you have control over that. You have really a lot of control over most aspects of the fonts. To specify a text decoration, for example, underline or type through, line through it, you can do text decoration and a colon and the type, where it might be underline, overline, type through, and to transform the text, to make it, for example, uppercase or lowercase, text transform, colon, and then the type. You might like uppercase or lowercase. To display a font variant of text, you could use the font variant and a colon, and then the variant that you want to go and choose is going to be over there. So aligning text horizontally and vertically. To horizontally align the text, use the text align, where you're able to align it. The alignment could be either left, right, center, or justify. It will align the text that way. And to vertically align text within each line, use the vertical align, and it could be baseline, the bottom, it's going to be at the bottom of the line, or bottom, middle, sub, super, text bottom, or text top, or top. And you have all control over all those vertical alignments. And here we have the different, the values and descriptions for each one. You're able to combine all text formatting into a single line, and you would do font and then the style, variant, the weight, size, height, family, and so on, all in one line, where the style is the font style and variant is the variant, and so on. So it saves you some coding space if you want to have control over the styling all in one line. And here's an example. I'd like look at these examples with you. Right, we have, right, can you see this? You have the in the body, right, the footer address, in the body and the footer and address. They're the background color is going to be the RGB. This is going to be the color, the background color, right? This sets the background color. Then the color of the text is going to be white, right? Then you have the RGB A is going to be this color. So as far as the opacity and so on, you're able to go and indicate that. The font is going to be normal small caps, putting this all in one line. Right here, the different fonts that we're able to choose from, and the text line is going to be center. So that was an example of doing it all in one line. We're able to format lists pretty simply, right? List Maker is the default browser style symbol displayed before each list item for unordered and ordered list. We learned last section how to make an ordered list, so we're actually able to make a marker for it. So to change the type of list marker, or to prevent any display of a list marker, use the following. You would use list -style -type and a colon the type, where type is the various types of markers that you might want to use. And here's a list of the markers. You might make a disk or a circle or numbers, decimals. These are all the different types of markers you're able to go and make with it. So depending on what you want to do, you might want to choose one of those markers. You could even use images as a marker by going in a customized graphic image for the list marker can be supplied by the user or the controller, the web designer. And so you would use it by the URL. You would do list style image URL, and where the URL is going to be the location of that graphic that you want to use. Here, let's look at this example really fast here. Here it is, right? So they want to use this run icon.png, and so this is going to be for articles, right? Articles, and they're going to use that this run icon. Oops. You're able to set the position of it. CSS treats each list item as a blocked level element placed within a virtual box in which a list marker is placed outside of the list of text, the list text. So if you want to change it, the default behavior, you would use this code in your CSS list style position, and you would set the position, and it's going to be either outside or inside. So depending on where you want to go and put it, you would use one of those commands, and that would go and customize it for how you want to go and use it. And here's some more list marker positions. Take a look at this. All right, we have right? This is going to be, here are the examples, right? It's a virtual box around it, and it's either going to be on the outside or it's going to be the inside. You don't see these red lines, obviously, but it's going to be either the outside or the inside, depending on what you set it to be. So margins and padding are extremely important in designing a site. You want to get, you don't want your text to be too close to the margin, and you also have the ability to pad it, to pad text. So block level elements follow the structure of a box model. Contents in a box model are enclosed within the following series of concentric boxes. We have the content of the element itself, the actual element, and then the padding space, which extends from the element's content to the border. So we'll take a look here, right? This is a good picture, right? The border surrounding the padding space, and the margin space comprised of the space beyond the border up to the text. Let's take a closer look at this for a second. Right, we have the text itself, right? This is the text box, which contains what you want to display, and then we have the padding around that, and then we have a border around that if you have a border, and then margins are going to be from the page itself. So all that is kind of like working together. To set the width of the padding space, use the following padding property, padding and then the size of the padding that you want to go and set. Where size is expressed in one of the CSS units unit lengths, either percentage or em or so on, or the keyword auto to let the browser automatically choose the padding that you want to put in. So here's another example, right? You have nav, selects the unordered list within the nav elements. You have line height 2, list size type none, padding left, and this is what we're focused on, 5px. This is using pixels. So it sets the padding on the left side to 5 pixels. To set the size of the margins around the block level elements, you would use margin and the size, and the margin you could put top, right, bottom, left. You should remember that order because you could do it all in one shot. You could break it up and say margin top, margin right, margin left, or you could do it all together. So it starts at the top and then you go clockwise, top, right, bottom, left. To set the size of the border space, use the border width and then the size. It could be in pixels. And the border width, you could also do top, right, bottom, left, so you could specify specific ones for each border of that element. Again, here's an example of that, right? We have the same as before, right? And then we have the navigation, the UL in it, and the LI news group. We're going to set the margin top to just 2 pixels. Okay, next. There's something called pseudo classes, and using pseudo classes and pseudo elements. Pseudo classes are classified as classifies an element based on its current status, position, or use in the document. And you would have the element and then the colon and the actual pseudo class, where an element is an element from the document, and the pseudo class is the name of the CSS pseudo class. The structural pseudo class classifies an element based on its location within the structure of the HTML, the actual HTML document. And this is examples of that, right? The root is the top element. You have empty is the element with no content, the only child, the first child. So depending on what the structure is, you could go and access those elements. Here's some more examples there. And here we have you're able also to have pseudo classes for hypertext, and this is dynamic pseudo class. It's a type of pseudo class in which the class can change state based on the actions of the user. So depending on what the user wants to do, for example, they might, for a good example are links, right? If it's already, the link has not yet been visited by the user, or it might be visited. So you'll have a different type of styling for that. If it's active, the element is in the process of being activated or clicked by the user. It might be hovering over it, not clicked yet, or the focus, meaning it's on it, but it also has not been, the element is receiving the focus, meaning it's ready to get, the mouse is like over close to it or tabbed to it of the keyboard or mouse pointer. That's what the focus is for. Now we have pseudo element is an object that exists only in the rendered page. The pseudo element can be selected using the following CSS selector. You have the element and you have 2 colons and a pseudo element, where the element is an element from the HTML file and pseudo element is the name of the CSS pseudo element. And this is how you go and use that. Generate content with CSS. New content can be added either before or after an element using the following before and after pseudo elements. So you might do the element before, element after, and then the text, where text is the content to be inserted into the rendered page, and so it will actually show up on the rendered page itself. You could, missing top here, generate content with CSS. You're able to have none here. It's going to set the content to an empty text string. Nothing's going to appear. You could have, you can use any of these. I'll make it a little bigger, right? The counter displays a counter value. The text displays specific text. You have all these options. You can experiment with these to see what each one does, or look them up on the internet. And then we have the content property can be used to insert an attribute value into the rendered page using the attribute function, where the attribute is an attribute of the selected element. You could insert quotation marks using the block quote Q element used to put quoted text in, and decorative opening and closing quotation marks can be inserted using the content property as follows. You have the content, your open quote or close quote. This is a syntax for it. And here is the example. Right, here you have the content, open quote. This is the font family. This is for the aside element, and a block quote before. Here we'll set all these elements. The book has quite a few examples of all these that you're able to go through, and along with a tutorial with each specific section explaining the content, and I encourage you to go through that. This week I assigned the 2 different assignments that are at the end of the chapter, and you could follow the information given on those questions in order to go and to lead you towards a solution. The second one I assigned, I believe it's problem 4, it gives you a little bit of flexibility with your solution. It's not, I don't doubt even if 2 students will have the same solution for it. So that brings us to the end of this section. If you have any questions, please contact me. You can send me an email, or you could send me a text through Moodle. I'll be happy to help out. If you're not understanding a specific one of the questions, I could give you some starter code, or if you tell me your problem, what you're having difficulties with, I could send you a guideline to help you get back on track. All right, that's it. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching.